because nobody wants to believe that it's real. And that's ultimately, and I don't blame people for being like, look, I just want to go about my life. With respect to Epstein, how is it that we have gone through all this time and not a single person who was on that client list has been prosecuted?
Well, not only that, but I guess I agree with you, but not only that, the fact that the judge said no, it's too volatile to release.
Yeah, well, because you had Acosta.
Like if we tell everybody,
like, wait, what do you
then
mean?
you guys are going to be real busy for the next year.
Well, you remember, and that's the distinction that I'm making between Trump 1.0 and Trump 2.0. You had Alex Acosta, who was the prosecutor in Florida, who gave Epstein that sweetheart deal where he was technically in jail, but he could like get massages while he was in there.
What kind of masseuse are you?
And not to mention, that was in like 2008. And then all these people like Bill Gates are still visiting with him afterwards. I'm pretty sure if you get accused of that kind of crime, like even if you got a sweetheart deal, I wouldn't be hanging out with that dude.
I mean,
right?
I wouldn't hang out with Epstein at all.
I mean, I think if you look at it in that way, then you're like, okay, if Bill Gates was one of those people, there are a lot of really powerful people whose names are on that list.
Did Clinton's tour of Africa with Epstein, was that before or after?
Clinton's tour of Africa was in the 90s.
It was in the 90s, okay.
And that was with Kevin Spacey and Chris Tucker. Which is like, wait, what? Chris Tucker was on the plane. What the heck?
Yeah, Chris Tucker was there, yeah.
Yeah, Chris Tucker was on the plane, yeah.
Film Rush Hour 5,
Was Jackie Chan with him too?
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Don't nobody understand the words that come out of your mouth.
It's a great movie, though.
Hey, Chris, she's only 5.
No. All right, so
I'm not saying he is. I'm just making jokes here. Just to be clear.
I mean, the thing is, when you're talking about Epstein or Epstein Island and stuff, that kind of stuff, you assume the worst.
I was talking about that in 2015. I was like, there's an island, this guy named Jeffrey Epstein. I was telling all my friends from home. I remember Thanksgiving 15 and 16.
How'd you find out about it?
Because I was on the dark corners of the internet where that kind of conversation takes place. And people noticed that there were like...
You mean 4chan by
I was about to say 4chan.
No comment. I don't reveal my sources. But all these Anons were like, not only is there this island...
You're talking about Anons,
not only is there this island, there's this woman who went by the name of Ray Chandler. And look, I don't want to... I hope I don't get like a...
Do I need to step away?
I don't want a cruise missile to come through
safe inside the building.
Yeah.
Once you walk outside, I make no
But
promise.
she had photos that were tagged on Epstein Island of a surveillance system that showed people. It was very hard to tell because it was pixelated and black and white, but naked people inside of what looked like a prison cell. And the people went through her Instagram and they started looking at Epstein Island on Google Earth, and they're like, why are there industrial ventilation systems on this island? What is this temple? And all my buddies are like, you're crazy. And then like a couple years later, I was like, I told you guys.
Who's crazy
I
now?
told you.
That's got to be, I mean, that's got to be a real heavy kind of I told you so.
Yeah. Well, because nobody wants to believe that it's real. And that's ultimately, and I don't blame people for being like, look, I just want to go about my life. And I don't care. But like, if you look at the Catholic Church, for example, if it was not only a place where that kind of stuff was overlooked, but it was actually that if you share that dark secret with somebody else, then that actually allows you to be elevated within that hierarchy, because the only person you can trust is somebody who you have dirt on. So I think that if you use that as a proxy, then we've seen something similar happen within the darker elements of our government. And, the people who were the ones participating in this kind of stuff are the ones who were elevated through the hierarchy because, you can trust somebody when you have dirt on them. And that's what it's all about.
I mean, you do mention, we talked about a little bit about the Epstein situation, and it is interesting that the American people, specifically the people that are prone to get excited in ways that you guys cover.
What are you talking about? Me?
It is interesting that kind of stuff doesn't really motivate most people. You'll hear people talk about the wealthy and the 1%, but since, Occupy Wall Street, the behavior or misbehavior of the ultra rich is not enough to get the average person to get up off the couch. I mean, obviously some people will, because you've got people like Luigi that went and killed a dude that was, in the grand scheme of things, not really particularly rich. Like you'll hear them say, "Oh, the billionaires, the billionaires." This guy was worth maybe $40 million, and there is a significant difference between 40 million and a billion. But the billionaires and the top 0.001%, those are the people that end up getting discussed, but then they go and they kill the people that are worth 10, 20, 30
Essentially,
million.
like the middle management in the grand
Well,
scheme of things.
it was very, very convenient the way that all went down.
Oh, boy,
I'm
here we
not
go.
saying.
Here we go. Now
I'm not saying. I mean,
George Bush was
we
there
were doing
too, or
MK
what?
Ultra in the 70s, and I mean, I'm just saying, with whether it's Thomas Crooks or Luigi Mangione, it's not necessarily about whether or not the people being targeted are on the left or the right. It's about sowing the seeds of chaos. Because if you want to rule over one of the biggest democracies in the world, well, then you have to keep the population divided. And so that's what I've been saying since Trump got in.
Hold on. Democrats are saying we're no longer a democracy.
Well,
because Elon
yes.
Musk is cutting.
That's
waste
that goes into my point, though, that I think with Trump back in office and MAGA now being mainstream, I do think it behooves the right to a certain extent to reach out that hand and have the conversation despite the fact, look, I get it. I got dragged plenty of times. Yes, I've been through the mud, but I'm still willing to say, hey, well, you used to think that, you're an idiot. Yeah, you called me all these names, but let's have a conversation now. Let's turn a new side of the coin here. Come on.
Well, I mean, so are you saying that there's more to the Luigi story than just Luigi was inspired to go after a rich guy? Because if you look at the sentiment that the arguments the left makes and things that you see, there are people that are calling for the death of Elon Musk because he's assumed
Just
to
saw
be
it out in the streets 2 nights ago.
because he's assumed to be somehow in a puppet master of Donald Trump, which is personally I think it's ridiculous. But and there are people that are always calling for the death of billionaires and the expropriation of their property because they're an easy scapegoat.
Mm-hmm.
Even though people don't seem to understand that, like, the billionaires that own multiple companies, like, they're the ones they're the reason why why the people that work for them have jobs, right? Like, I firmly believe that it takes people, and it's not a situation where everyone's a blank slate and anyone that went through the same circumstances would be able to do what Bezos or Musk or the Waltons or whichever billionaire you decide you dislike. It's the decisions those people make, and that is unique to those people. It's not the way the left kind of characterizes it, where anybody that was in that position would do that. And so it doesn't matter who it is, that the circumstances created the person. I believe the person creates the circumstances. And that being the case, I think that the way that the left portrays the wealthy and billionaires and by extension millionaires, because again, the way that people that are motivated by this stuff, they perceive it as if he's richer than me, or it looks like he's rich, then he qualifies. So, like, I'm not even a millionaire, but there are people that are like, oh, well, Phil's rich, so it's okay. It's bad that I was talking about the possibility of the Doge dividend, and people are like, no, well, it's easy for you to say you're rich, and it's like, well, I mean, I'm not broke, but I'm also not a millionaire, or I don't have millions of dollars in the bank, but to the people that are upset that I would say the Doge dividend is bad, those people are looking at me and they're saying, well, he's a rich guy, and they classify me with the CEO of the healthcare company that got murdered. And it's like he's worth 40 million. And even that is peanuts compared to someone that's worth one individual $1 billion. Never mind someone like Bezos or Musk that are worth, whatever, 75 or 100 billion or whatever they happen to be worth. And I think the motivation that those people have, or the driver, is just envy, and I think that's enough to spawn people to do some.
It's been put on steroids too, because now with these social media platforms, you can literally look at the life of every billionaire and every multimillionaire celebrity, and they're putting filters on their content, and it's like the grass has always been greener on the other side, but now you're getting slapped over the head with that greener grass every single day, depending on what your social media feed looks like. But regardless, everybody's presenting their own lives in the most positive light, and that actually is not what their lives really look like. But what you're presented with on your feed as you go through is just all these people who are richer than you, who have more than you, who have a better job or whatever it is. And so it's like there's a spiritual sickness that is pervades across both sides of the political spectrum, where these.
So we don't want to get down with the sickness.
Yeah, we.
Wow.
But I do think and not to mention pharmaceuticals and the fact that more people have prescriptions for things like Adderall and Xanax, and it's pretty easy to go down rabbit holes when you're jacked up on some Adderall, right? So I don't think
I don't know. I wouldn't know, Richie. Would you?
I've tried it before. Yeah,
it sounds like you're speaking from experience.
I dabbled.
Here.
Yeah, I got down some rabbit holes.
That's why we love you. Because you're Arch Steve-O. That's you're Arch Steve-O.
Something
I'm retired.
I mean, it takes a little extra something to stay up all night chasing after crazy people that are throwing Molotov cocktails, right?
That was mostly nicotine pouches, actually.
I was pure adrenaline, baby.
Nicotine's a hell of a drug, man. I miss it.
It is. You got it right here, mellow.
But so, Julio, what are your thoughts on the narrative that's being spun and how about the wealthy or Musk or I think what are perceived to be wealthy, really, I guess it more boils down to income inequality, because relative income differences are far more impactful than anything else. Like if you have a destitute, poor population, and then there's a dude that makes enough money to pay for food, and everyone around him doesn't have enough money to pay for food, that dude might as well be a billionaire, and the rest of the people around him are going to hate his guts because he can pay for, even if he's living in you could be living in a mud hut, but it's a mud hut that's got a bag of rice in it every day, and the people around him don't have a mud hut or don't have a bag of rice every day. Well, they're going to look at him and they're going to be like, I'm going to kill him because he has more than me. And in the United States, nobody in the United States is poor by any kind of
global
historical standards, definitely not by global standards. You make $1 a day in some parts of the world, and that's not even, or that's that's what gets you out of abject poverty. I think the UN has said that by 2030 there will be no human beings in abject poverty, or a vanishingly small amount. The ability of markets to solve abject poverty is no longer in question. But here in the United States, you got people that are like, well, I can't pay my rent in New York, and I can't pay for the new iPhone. I've got an old, weird, broken down phone from 5 years ago that, the camera doesn't work or whatever. And so I feel like I'm poor, especially compared to people that have so much. And those people that are actually not really struggling to feed themselves will still feel like, I struggle to pay my bills, so I'm justified in hating people that have more than me. Do you feel like that's enough to get people to get people into the streets, or what point do you feel like it actually becomes a problem where people are going to say, I'll go and I'll go out and riot? Or is it just the temperature when it's warm enough and they're bored?
I mean, I think it's a combination of that, because when Mangione was being extradited from, Pennsylvania, right? You had like 2 people show up. So there's a lot of online support, and I think it's just in today's day and age, most people think that's enough to just say
the anons.
Well, not even anons.
Not just, but
not even the anons, but
people from behind a keyboard.
Yeah, just people from behind a keyboard, and obviously it's not just with that specific example, but that was a good example because there was such widespread support online, and so I don't know how that would translate necessarily into protest. Maybe if he's found guilty, okay, then in that case maybe.
Well, I got my broken iPhone right here. I'm not sitting on my high horse like Phil over there, Mr. Rich Man. I think we're gonna have to occupy the compound.
I don't know. You have 3. You have 3.
I do have 3 lenses.
You have 3 lenses.
It is a max. It is a max, but it is broken. All right.
It's a small one, man.
All right, and I got to pay rent in D.C. Not to mention the taxes and the parking tickets.
You've chosen to pay rent.
Yeah, well,
you've chosen poorly.
That's true. 16 years. But now they're trying to levy my taxes because of all my parking tickets. They're going to take my refund.
Wait, how many parking tickets do you have?
Well, I got that car.
Get the government after him.
I got my car out of the state. It's mothballed somewhere else, and I bought another car. But there are thousands of dollars. There's some speed cameras involved. I've been trying my best. I may or may not have.
You're not telling a sympathetic story.
Yeah. Well, no, but Here's one thing I will say to the people.
I'm sure you don't need to talk to your lawyer.
If you guys, if even just 1% of the people watching this show would take it upon themselves to go out, find the speed camera closest to their house, and throw some spray paint on that thing. I'm not saying I've done that. And I'm not saying that the camera next to my house has been raised up multiple times over the last 5 years.
We hear
getting higher and higher.
But
am I not supposed to do that? I'm not supposed to. I can advocate for spray painting speed cameras, right? Is that allowed?
No.
Okay. Well, I just did.
Okay. Well,
that is oppression right there. They have stop sign cameras in DC now. Look, you don't stop for 3 seconds, $100 ticket.
I am opposed to all forms of traffic cameras that are just giving out.
Let's make it hard for them.
That are just giving out tickets. I'm also opposed to discussing vandalism of public property on the internet.
We do not low-level crime. If it's under $1,500 in damage, it's not a felony.
Oh my God.
Okay. Enough. You got to move on.
All right. Enough from Mr. Retired over here.
Yeah. You're going to be retired to some kind of public service to pay your debt to society.
I don't even like airplanes anymore anyway. I don't need to be.
Oh my gosh, that was because I fly when I lived here in the area. I flew out of DCA all the time, not knowing that. There's actually all these helicopter routes right around DCA. It's like, whose idea was that?
Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War podcast. We're live every Friday, 10 a.m. to noon. So subscribe and come hang out.